Hey, good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm very pleased to have with me as my guest Jonathan Tam, who's a partner at Weiss. Jonathan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Richard. It's good to be here.
Jonathan, I'm excited to have you. I've seen your name quite a lot. Why don't you start by telling me kind of why you went to law school in the first place?
Sure. So the plan wasn't always to go to law school. I actually started college at UC Berkeley as a intended math major.
Oh, interesting.
Uh, yeah, math was always something that I was good at and I enjoyed. I mean, frankly, in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise. So sort of the natural path was for me to select math. But I soon realized at Berkeley that math was not really for me. I mean, it was just at a whole nother level. When I was speaking with math graduate students, I mean, they were just theorizing. They lived and breathed math. So that was just not for me. And I was sort of had a little of a crisis moment. I was, first year college student, didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I happened to be in a intro to philosophy course as part of general education, and it was focused on logic.
Uh-huh.
And that was a fascinating course for me because it brought a really technical side to writing and
Mm.
how you construct persuasive arguments, why some arguments aren't as persuasive. And so through that lens, that technical side of writing, I spoke to philosophy graduate students. I like this class.
Yeah.
I've never considered philosophy as something that I'd want to major in, but what do philosophy majors do after college? And he's like, well, some of us teach, and a lot of us go to law school. And law school is not something I entertained up until that point in my
Interesting.
life. I'm a son of immigrants from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
English was not their first language. English wasn't my first language, actually.
Huh.
And we didn't have any lawyers in the family. So I had to learn a lot about, what this path to law school or being a lawyer would, entail. Um, and, just meeting other people. I decided to not only major in philosophy, but also major in legal studies, just to make sure that I was actually going to be interested in the law. But yeah, so that's sort of my path to going to law school.
Huh.
When I eventually told my parents,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna pursue law school. I mean, they looked at me like I had three heads because, um, you know, in high school it was all about science and math,
Mm.
and I came from a family of, engineers. All my dad, all my uncles, my brother, all very different types of engineers:
Yeah.
chemical engineer, mechanical engineer,
Interesting.
civil engineer. So
Uh-huh.
I sort of departed from that um, to pursue law, and I think, frankly, they were probably a little worried for me,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because they didn't, in their mind, they're like, how is this going to work? They didn't have someone that they knew that had pursued this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's turned out all right.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I'm surprised you didn't switch to engineering because I mean, if math was too theoretical, I mean, one easy, very easy way is to go into engineering. Obviously, there's plenty of tracks for engineering. You came from a family of engineers. Why did you choose that as your path?
I don't know. I don't think I was deliberately being rebellious, but I was, there was some pressure from my parents to be an engineer or a computer
Hmm.
scientist, and
Right.
it didn't speak to me as much as I liked
Huh.
math and some of the sciences. But I do think it's part of why I eventually fell into products liability and mass torts,
Right.
which is the area I specialize in, in my career.
Why is that? Because there's a lot of math in that, or why is that?
It's not, I mean, it's not math, but I do think it is an interesting intersection of law and science and technology.
Hmm.
We represent, leading companies who manufacture various different types of products. So you're also learning the science and technology behind it.
Hmm.
We've got to understand it. We work with leading experts around the world about
Hmm.
medicines, medical devices, technologies, and so it keeps very interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Well, let me go back for a quick question. So when you got to law school, I realized you figured it out late. Did you like it? Did you love it? I mean, did you feel like, okay, wow, this is definitely for me?
I really did enjoy law school, and again, I was just sort of, you know, in the experience, like absorbing everything.
Yeah.
Didn't know uh, too much about what to expect. And again, when I started law school, I thought I wanted to be an IP lawyer because of the intersection with science.
Yeah.
Um, Things changed when I sort of met different people, talked about what they were doing in their careers. And I've worked in the mass torts product liability my entire career,
Hmm.
and I really enjoy it.
Well, that was actually my next question because most laws, like myself, I was the engineer in undergrad. I went to law school. I became an IP lawyer. That's what, a lot of scientists do.
Yeah.
What directed you towards the mass towards products liability? How did you even know about that area of law?
Yeah, so I didn't actually seek it out. It's one of those things that sort of happened by happenstance as well. In law school, I really loved civil procedure. I was one of the weird students that loved civil procedure, and how you can sort of use the rules and structure of civil litigation to advance your client's interests. And so when I was a summer associate at Skadden in New York at the time, I expressed that interest and shared it with others. And they said, well, the complex litigation products liability group faces a lot of interesting procedural issues, because they are dealing with massive litigations with thousands of cases around the country. And so a lot of the procedural rules and devices are critically important, to the clients in those cases, because how you set up the litigation early on can lead to a lot of success later on.
Hmm. And so
So
that's
that's how I got introduced to it, really.
oh, interesting. So did you ever even get a chance to dabble in IP law? Did you try any patent law cases or anything?
I I did as a summer associate. Summer associate opportunities at big firms are great because they allow you the flexibility to try a
Hmm.
lot of different things. And so I did take on some IP assignments. I took on an M&A assignment just because I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that, litigation was what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
corporate work.
Well, did you not like I like IP? I mean, wouldn't it also been a very good fit for you?
It just didn't. I think it could have been a good fit. It
Yeah.
didn't resonate with me as much as I thought it might.
Huh.
Um, and frankly, a lot of it had to do with just sort of the people that I met.
Yeah.
Um, and I was sort of drawn to the people who were doing the mass torts work. And, the advice that I got at the time was, you want to be able to, uh, you know, work with your colleagues. So sometimes it's about who you like.
Yeah, yeah. No, that does often it. So do you find that your science, let's say science predilection or predisposition does help you a lot? I mean, when you're talking to clients and experts, I mean, it sounds like you're actually doing as much, maybe as much science as even an IP lawyer. Do you think that's true?
I mean, I'm not the experts in these fields, so I know a little bit,
Yeah.
to have conversations with these experts, but they definitely teach me a lot.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, over the years, I've picked up, um, uh, you know, a decent amount of
Yeah.
scientific
Yeah.
knowledge, but
Yeah.
that's what keeps the job interesting. We're
I was
always
thinking,
learning from the experts, but over the years, I've learned how to read epidemiological studies or statistical analyses.
and you find that, I assume you find that pretty interesting, right? Not dry and dull and boring or anything like that.
No, no, I think it's fascinating and it's probably really nerdy of me, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I enjoy reading epidemiological studies and seeing odds ratios and all sorts of things like that.
You get to deal with a lot of statistics in your area. Is that something you frequently have to look at?
Yeah, it's a big part of, I mean, it's a significant part of the cases that we deal with because one of the core issues in mass torts and products liability is causation. The question of did this product cause this harm?
Mm.
And often there are epidemiological studies that study, in populations, exposures to a medicine or a chemical, and the outcome.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of statistics involved. And it's not just, looking at numbers and seeing if they're above one or not. There's a lot of things that go behind.
Yeah.
What do those numbers actually mean? Are there biases that influence the number? Are there confounders?
Give me a feel for the range of products and stuff that you worked on. I'm guessing it's a big range, but just kind of give me a feel for it.
Sure. So a lot of it has been in the prescription medication space. Also have done work with medical devices, consumer electronics, consumer products. Um, it really spans. It's a wide variety of industries.
Yeah, yeah. Any particular industries you kind of like more than the others, or that you tend to kind of emphasize in your practice?
Not really. I mean, I think in the beginning of my career, most of my work was in the prescription medication space. But I think what's been interesting is that since then, we've really broadened uh, the types of products that we've worked on. So it's always, uh, keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
And more recently, we've been representing companies that traditionally weren't facing mass torts or products liability suits, but the plaintiff's bar has been creative,
Mhm.
um, and sort of expanding the scope of tort liability. And so we have worked with companies like tech companies. Um, yeah.
So I see you recently made this interesting move to Paul Weiss. Sounds very exciting. Tell me a little bit about what the reason for that is and why you made the move.
Yeah, no, it's an incredibly exciting move. It's not every day that a firm like Paul Weiss, um, you know, has an opportunity to uh, create a new office in California.
Mhm.
Paul Weiss has for a long time been in New York and
Mhm.
Washington, D.C. A few years ago, they opened San Francisco, and now LA is a brand new office. I mean, we just moved back in last week with our new furniture. But yeah, no, I mean, Paul Weiss is an elite firm, a litigation powerhouse. I mean, it's home to superstar lawyers, lawyers that I've known and long admired.
Mhm.
So the opportunity to join Paul Weiss, help build its litigation practice in Los Angeles was something I just couldn't pass up. And I
Mhm.
really think that, the platform here is going to take, our practice to just a whole nother level.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate your taking the time and chatting with me. You have a super interesting background. Congratulations on your new move. And again, thanks for sharing it with me.
Thanks, Richard.
This is Richard Hsu and Jonathan Tam. Thanks.